And weather service, we didn't have anything like radars or anything when we started. And the first radars we got in the weather service were taken out of B-29s that they had used in there. And then by, let's see, it was a couple of 3 years we finally got a radar for weather. And now they got a radar for weather that I know nothing about because it's so, everything went up so fast after they started with these resistors and things. Boy, things started fast. I left in 1968 because they come up to me and said, we need somebody that knows how to forecast weather, work on weather radars and stuff, and we don't have anybody to do that. This was a civilian outfit, scientific, I forgot what it was, scientific exploration or something. But they needed a civilian. I was not a civilian. But the commander at that time, out here at Scott where I was at, he and I had been together since he was a lieutenant and I was a private, but he was a general now. He said, Carl, I'll let you go if you want to go. He said, we'll get you out. So they discharged me, and there's a thing up there on the wall that I went to South Pole for a year. So I was down there for a year.
With this private organization?
No, it's a U.S. Organization. You know, like National Weather Service is what. But this was, I forget what it was called now. It was
a
research program, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And then you came back to Illinois after that? Is that?
Yeah. I came back here, and of course, when I got through there, that was it. So I said, my wife at that time, why don't you just, she was in real estate, said, why don't you just go off for a while? So I did for about a month, and a friend of mine that I'd been in the military with worked at the bank in Belleville, and they needed a guard. So I hired on as a guard in there, and that was in, I think that was probably in January or something. Well, while I was working there, I got a call from the National Weather Service, the civilian part of Weather Service, that we could use you at Scott Field. I mean at Lambert. So I went to Lambert, started working there.
About 1970?
1970. And I worked there until 1972 or 3. And they come out wanting somebody with my qualifications in Hawaii. So I volunteered for that. I went to Hawaii for a couple of years. And then while I was there, in fact, I was back here, my daughter was getting married. And I got a phone call from Washington, D.C. They were starting a new program that I had helped start in the Air Force, and they wanted me to come there. So I moved from Hawaii to Washington, D.C. And after I got there in 1979, I got a call from Washington, D.C. They were starting a new program that I'd worked on, and they wanted me to come up there. So that's where I went, up there. And that lasted until 1970 something. and they started a new program in Kansas City. They asked if I'd come there, so I went there. That's where I retired from.
Finally retired.
Then I started working. From there, I volunteered at Shriners Hospital.
Yes, yes.
I came back here. I retired in 85, I think. And I joined the INOD here pretty quick after that. I don't know, a year or two after that. And I've been with INOD ever since. And I started out giving tours of the hospital.
You said about 1992, 1993 is when you became a chaplain for Ionide?
90.
90.
90.
And that was under
Yeah.
Hogan.
But I had down at the South Pole, I had turned 40. I was the oldest guy down there. And everybody had problems. They come to me like I was a chaplain because we didn't have a chaplain. But that's one of the way I got started, I guess.
Nice.
What's been one of your most cherished memories of being a Shriner in Mason?
Most cherished? That's hard to say. Being over at the hospital there, you see so many kids come in that a cleft palate and all that. Now the cleft palate is done in Chicago, but when they get through, you can't ever tell they had a cleft palate. And kids come in with problems that their own doctor had told them, hey, that's nothing going to be done. Nothing can be done. They come to our hospital, it gets done. My job was just handing out toys to the kids.
Yeah, I saw the lovely photo. Is that you and your wife up in the photo up here?
Yeah.
Was that at Potentate's Ball?
Which one?
The one up here.
Yeah, it had to be. That's the only time I'd be dressed like that. Just Shrine is a good organization, and what we do is great. It's unfortunate that now we can still, if they don't have the money or the ways to pay for it, we still will take them in. So that's very fortunate we can do that yet. Yeah.
Great.
And we have kids all around the world come in. One case I remember, we had this Russian girl come in, and I forget now what her problem was, but it had to do with something with bombing or something. And since I had been in Berlin and worked with Russians sometimes, I tried to talk to her because she didn't know any English. And I never said a whole sentence before she started crying. And so I thought maybe, well, because I was a man. So after that, the school teacher, which was a lady, she finally got to her. But she ended up, I forget what her problem was now, real bad. She ended up coming back and visiting, but by that time she could speak English, and one of the sports teams was there, football, basketball, or something, was visiting, and she was there. She was having a big time with them. Really a good time.
How many years were you married?
About 50 plus. We got married in 1950. She passed away right after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
We enjoyed our life. When I retired, before she got sick, too sick to do anything, we made a couple of trips to Europe and around.
Wonderful.
But after that, like I said, when they'd come out of a bomb shelter, they'd give everybody cigarettes.
Yeah.
She started smoking at 13.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened. She had COPD. And her lungs and stuff couldn't stand it anymore.
Sure.
And that's what happened.
So you said she was born and raised in Germany.
Hmm?
You said she was born and raised in Germany.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming she spoke fluent German.
I still have nephews and things that we coordinate with in Germany and all. She was one of these people that her dad was made to join the Nazi Party. And they wanted to give him a house. He said, no, I got my own house. All right. But then he got sick, passed away. And then the war got to the point where they had a lot of French people coming from Germany, into Germany to help clean up and everything. And they kept them as prisoners, more or less. Well, her mother would start feeding those people without anybody knowing it. And the Nazis found out about it. They were going to put her in a prison camp because she was feeding the French. But it so happened at that time, something big happened that they didn't get her in a prison camp. She got moved to a little town where nobody knew where she was. But that's the way they were at that time.
Did you live in Berlin during the Berlin airlift at any time?
I helped load the first airplane that went from Wiesbaden to Berlin. Had been on night shift. I was sleeping good, and they come around waking people up. Some sergeant come in to wake me up. Hey, Sarge, you're supposed to go over to the loading area. I said, why? I'm just got to bed. I don't make any difference. Get over there. So I went over there. I had an old C-47, which you don't hear of anymore. They was loading it with coal to take it to Berlin. And that was the first thing I knew of the airlift. After that, of course, we would take upper air and everything and all that stuff so that the planes knew where to fly. And I went on a few trips to Berlin. And there's one area you went through buildings on the airfield going in. And then while you were in the air, there were usually Russian planes flying all around you, just trying to scare you a little bit. None of them was ever shot down, but they was always messing around.
It was pretty tense.
Yeah. Yeah, but I helped load that first airplane, and we had German nationals were the ones that were loading the airplane because they didn't have any military people at that time to do things like that.
Could you speak a little German?
Very little, because my wife, you wouldn't know she was German.
Really?
And my in-laws spoke English, and they always wanted to speak English to me so that they could learn English. And I was lazy enough that I said, okay, I don't. have to worry about it.
Sure.
So I could speak enough to get by myself outside, but
So that
not,
helped when
not
you were loading the plane.
yeah, but I couldn't. If I was sitting here with a group of people, they were having a regular conversation, I would only get a little bit of it. I wasn't that good at it. Now, both my kids learned to speak German because when I went back, Monica went to high school at a military German high school, and Michael went to grade school, so they could speak both of them. They spoke English in school, but the thing is, they were young enough. They spoke a lot of German because, like I said, my mother-in-law spoke some English. I and her could talk, but not good really. But the kids in her spoke German. And the same way with a lot of my nephews and my in-laws, they wanted to speak English. So my kids learned to speak good German and good English. In fact, we were over there, my daughter was over there in a store one day, and I forgot what we was doing. Anyway, the clerk asked my daughter, "What part of Germany are you from? I can't tell what your accent is." And she told her, and the clerk pointed to me and said, "I know he's American."
True.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful.
Now, did you also learn some French during that time as well?
No, no. And my wife was one of these people. She spoke German, English, French, Arabic, Italian.
My goodness.
And that's why she was in the intelligence service. That sure helped.
Well, that's one of the reasons. Yeah.
Well, Carl, we can't thank you enough for taking your time to be with us today. Again, our special guest today has been Carl Hall for another of our Bond County Historical Society Legacy interviews.